everybody, and welcome to This Is My Bourbon Podcast. I am the host of this show, Perry, and with me is my co-host, Eric, also known as the Whiskey Mule.
That's me, baby.
What's up, buddy?
What are you doing?
What am I doing?
We're recording a podcast.
We're recording a podcast. It's the first podcast that we have recorded in 2023. The new year has hit.
It's been a year since we recorded, hasn't it?
Well, it's been since last year.
I hate that joke.
I do. But
you gotta do it.
It's the meme now.
Yeah, you
right?
gotta do it.
Yeah.
You gotta do it.
If you are here for the first time, this podcast is for you.
Yeah,
This episode is directly for you.
It's called This Is Your Bourbon Podcast.
Yeah, okay.
It is.
Well, that's not what I was planning on calling it, but that's fine. I don't mind that.
Okay.
But if you're coming back and you've listened to all over, what are we doing? 200 episodes?
Yeah.
This is 263. Thank you so much for sticking around, for being here for 5 years. But we figured that after 5 years of podcasting, after 250 plus episodes, that now was a good time for us to kind of reintroduce ourselves and let you know who we are, the journeys that we've kind of been on with bourbon and with podcasting over the past few years. You know, Eric is not the first co-host that's been on the show, so we'll kind of talk about that a little bit as well. And then we're going to review one of the the most purchased bourbons of all time, which consistently I believe people would call smooth. So we're going to get to all that.
I wonder if they can guess it by the time we get through the review.
Well, they probably have seen it in the title.
Shit. They haven't they?
Well, that's part of the SEO. That's part of us
I
trying
didn't
to
think of that.
exactly.
I was thinking we were just like real
if you
time
think
right
we're
now.
not aware of like how we're trying to get people to listen to the show,
Yeah, no.
we are, because that's how it goes.
You know, I'm only like almost 100 episodes in. I still don't know what I'm doing.
I don't even know. I think you actually might be about 100 episodes.
I mean,
in
if you
at this
count
point.
all the bonus stuff and the Patreon stuff,
you're well over 100.
But I still don't
well
know what
over
I'm doing.
100.
So that's something you'll figure out once you listen to this podcast. I still don't know what I'm doing.
Well, if you want to follow us on social media and see how little we know what we're doing, you can head to @MyBourbonPod or @WhiskeyMutant. And check all of our stuff out. You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast for as little as $1 a month. As little as $5 a month, there is some bonus content. We actually had somebody up their Patreon here this week, and it's not who you would expect it to be.
Really?
Yeah, we'll talk about that towards the end. That's fine. Everything's fine. We're super organized and official.
Hey, I'm just making
over here.
I'm just making a little thing here.
You can check out all of our apparel and merchandise at bourbonshop.threadless.com. We got hats. No, we don't. We got shirts. I immediately lied to the new people. We got shirts.
Maybe
we got
that's a sign that
hoodies.
we need hats.
We do need hats for sure. Shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts. We got some mugs. We got some buttons, some stickers, all sorts of stuff over there. So go check that out. We got a skateboard if you want to rep your boys on your on your board.
Grind us.
If you want to grind your boys.
Yeah.
Okay. Leave us a 5-star rating and review as well. During the month of January, if you leave us a 5-star rating and review, you're going to be entered into a giveaway where we give away some samples of stuff that is in our collection, and that includes a Zoom tasting.
Ooh,
with us as
the
well.
Top prize.
That is the prize.
Oh,
there's one winner.
Prize. Oh.
Yeah. Which reminds me, we need to get the giveaway for for the Splash.
Yeah.
Fundraiser done too. And something fun that I haven't even told you about. But if you are in the Louisville area, the weekend of January 20th and 21st and March 24th and 25th, I'm going to be playing some shows.
Really?
Yeah. I got asked by my buddy Drew Crawley, who has been on the show before. Yeah. He's got a residency at O'Shea's up in Louisville, so I'm going to be playing a set each night and sitting in with him on a bunch of songs too.
Nice.
So I'm very nervous. I'm very, very nervous, but I'm really excited about it. This is my return to stage for the first time since like 2017, 2018.
Well, I got to figure out how to get to this. We got to plan this.
Yeah. So I'm going to be playing some old songs. I'm going to be playing some new songs. I'm going to be playing some covers I've never done before. It's a whole bunch of stuff that you're going to want to come and check out. I'm probably going to wind up recording those shows as well and putting out just big like live album thing, compilation, whatever you want to call it. But if you want to listen to some of my music too, you can head to perryritter.bandcamp.com.
I've got a recording of your last performance.
My last show, yeah.
When you
I guess I could count that. So, I was kind of on stage last
took over the
summer.
show.
Yeah.
You took a guitar from an old person.
He let me take it from him.
It didn't look like it.
Well, so we are getting ever closer as well to announcing details for This Is My Bourbon Weekend 2023, which is going to be Memorial Day weekend here in Lexington, Kentucky. Eric and I are getting some of those details finished up so that we can start to promote them.
Yeah.
And you guys can start buying tickets, which is going to be crazy.
It's going to sell out.
It's going to sell out, man. It's absolutely going to sell out. But the thing that we normally do to start off these episodes, we either have a segment called Sips and Snacks, where we pair something with a bourbon, or Flying Blind, where we blind each other with a pour, kind of get our feelings on it and everything. And then we do the little reveal. So Eric has provided the blind pour.
I have.
This week, I have no idea what this
Nope.
is.
Look, it's not even marked. Nothing there.
I've had this before.
Have you?
It's maybe not.
I don't know. I think you have.
It smells very familiar.
I think you have. You've not had it in a while.
It's very specific, too.
It's got that characteristic. It's very, it's... It smells good, though.
Like, I lean towards it being a little bit younger, but then at the same time, it smells like an oatmeal cream pie.
Oh, oatmeal cream pie. I like that.
Poor Eric. So if you've not been following along, Eric's had to be on a diet recently.
I did. I have to switch up my labs a little bit.
So he hasn't had as many snack cakes as he has for a minute.
So if I get a note that reminds me of one, like, my body just does something. And it's just like, So... But yeah,
it's so familiar.
You've had this or had a version of it or something. I know you've not had it in a while, though, if you've had it before. It matches the palate. It matches that nose that you just said, but adds a little bit something else to it.
Raisins.
Ooh, yeah, I like that. It's a little fruity on the finish.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
interesting.
Really good. It's really good.
What the heck is this?
Do you want to guess anything about it?
Yeah, I'll go through and do some.
We gotta get you ready.
Some madness guessing. Oh my gosh, you're right.
Almost time.
All right, we're gonna have to have a Madness preparation episode or two
dude.
Coming up soon. Okay, I'm going to say it's a rye bourbon.
Yes. Kind of.
What do you mean? Oh, is it a boo rye?
Maybe. Let me look something up here. I told you I don't know what I'm doing.
Immediately evident that Eric is lost at all times.
Yeah. You can guess some other stuff.
Okay. I'm going to say 107 proof.
Close.
110?
Lower.
103.
Closer.
105?
Close. No, going the wrong way.
104.
Wrong way. You're 103, you said, right?
Yeah, 103.
So keep going down.
101.
Almost.
100?
Yes.
Is it bottled and bond? It drinks higher proof than 100. I will say 100
that much.
proof.
I should have researched this a little bit more. But yeah, 100 proof.
Welcome to TIMBP, everybody.
Yeah.
It kind of has a finished feeling to it, but I don't think it is. But it does. It reminds me of like a Cabernet finish.
It is bottled and bond.
It is bottled and bond.
Yes.
Okay. Oh man. I don't know what the heck this is. Kentucky?
Yes.
Rye bourbon, maybe.
partially.
See, I can't even win if you don't know the answers.
If I'd say it, it'll give it away. Pick the distillery.
Hit. Wild Turkey? Is this Unforgiven?
No.
Or Forgiven? Or whatever?
No.
What was it called? Forgiven. Is it Heaven Hill?
No.
I don't freaking know. Dude.
Frankfurt.
Buffalo Trace?
Yes.
This is a bottled and bond Buffalo Trace product?
Yeah.
Is it a Taylor pick?
Yeah. It's not a pick.
It's just Taylor single barrel?
It's a 4-grain. Oh, it's a Taylor 4-grain. That's why I was like, yeah, it's a rye bourbon, but it also has weed in it.
Huh. I've had 4-grain before. I don't remember it tasting like this.
Well, I know you had with Greasy Boy. You had the Tornado, right?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. So I was like, well, you've had Tornado, you've had E.H. Taylor, but I know you've not had 4-grain in a while. So I got us some 4-grain.
It's been a hot minute.
And do you want to hear the funny story of how I got this?
I would love to, actually.
Okay. So I had to work. I had to work on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. But April didn't. And so April was invited to like the little neighborhood get together.
Oh, okay. I see where this is going.
And so April wanted to have old fashioned. So I made her up an old fashioned before I left for work. And then I had everything ready to where I told her, like, put this and this and this, mix it up, and you'll have your old fashioned. So she texted me and she was like, hey, I'm over here. This is what they have. What can I make an old fashioned out of? And she was like, they said I could use anything. And she sent a picture of each other 4-grain. And I said, just go to the house and get a sample bottle and put a little bit of that in there. And then honestly use whatever of these you want and make an old fashioned out of it. You just go to town. Like these are my neighbors who they're very generous. They're very nice. But they all kind of like, they're bourbon drinkers, but they only have like the stuff that kind of everybody in Lexington would know.
Right.
They have the big bottles and they got, yeah. So they had each their 4-grain and I had her run back to the house, get a sample bottle, put half of it out. Like it was a 2-ounce sample bottle. I said, pour half of that in there and bring it back. Cause I was like, I'm going to put that on Flying Blind. I don't know what she ended up using for her old fashioned, but it could have been 4-grain.
So did they know?
Yeah.
Okay. I was kind of hoping that
they said you could use whatever she wants. And she said, hey, Eric wanted to try something. I'm going to put a little bit in a sample bottle. And they're like, that's fine. But I don't know what she put in her. She could have put that in her old fashioned. I don't know.
That's like like $4,000 bottle in secondary?
I think so. Yeah.
Because the Tornado Survivor is like a $5,000 bottle.
Yeah, it's in that same. All those Taylor bottles like that are all crazy expensive.
Yeah.
So yeah, there you go.
Wild, dude. It's been so long since I've had that. Man, fantastic. We normally also ask each other, what have we been drinking recently?
So what have you been drinking?
Well, we had the new year.
We did.
Just a few days ago. And I reserved, I'll probably wind up putting it on screen for the video version if you're watching on YouTube. If you're not watching on YouTube, you can do that. Head over to youtube.com/This Is My Bourbon Podcast, or just keep listening in the podcast app of your choice. Yeah. I had my celebratory final pour of the year, and then my first pour of the year right after New Year's. My final pour was 2XO.
Nice.
Phoenix Blend.
Nice.
Because I figured it was appropriate for a
rising out of the ashes.
Coming up on something
coming in hot.
Brand freaking new. Dixon Dedman's new whiskey that he has made. And then started off the year with a bottle kill.
What'd you kill?
Elijah Craig's C918.
Oh.
All right.
Matthew McConaughey's switching to Heaven Hill now that his contract's up with Wild Turkey.
Yeah.
Right?
I said this in our Patreon stuff. But I wound up being able to procure yet another bottle of the C918. So
one of my favorites.
It is my favorite Elijah Craig barrel proof of like the new batches once they switched over to the new Elijah Craig bottle and they started like naming each batch and everything for the 12-year-old barrel proofs. But for, in general, it's my most memorable Elijah Craig barrel proof. It's a heck of a proof point too at 136.8. So you're going to feel real nice.
They bring that back. Bring those hazmat.
Hey, we have already seen, well, that's not even hazmat.
Well, it's close.
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
Yeah. But we have seen that A123 is out in the wild, apparently.
Yeah.
And it's looking pretty promising so far.
Yeah, 125.
Yeah, 125.3, I think, is what the proof was. So we're hopefully going to have a bottle of that before too long. But what about you? What you been drinking recently?
Oh, let's see.
You've been working the past couple of nights.
But I will say, I had one of the best Coke Zero and bourbons that I have had in a long time. So I went to Indianapolis to watch the Indiana Pacers play. I took my daughter and her boyfriend. Yes, that was something.
Boo. Boo to daughters having boyfriends.
Yeah, boo to daughters. At least he's a nice kid, whatever.
We're both girl dads.
But so they were watching the game and I was trying to be I love the fact that this is what we're doing because I love sports. I love basketball, I love football, all that stuff. But I was also trying to let them have a little bit of like, oh, my dad's not here the whole time. But they're in a crowd of people. It's not like they're going to do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So,
it's a controlled environment.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to go back out to I got to use the bathroom and look around a little bit. So luckily, NBA facilities are just out of control. Like there was food and alcohol everywhere. I was like, this is the wrong time for me to be here. I can't even drink that much because I got to drive back or drive these, whatever. So I was like, I'm having one drink. It was right before the game got started. And I'm just going to make it a cocktail. And they had St. Elmo's bourbon infused with vanilla and cherry. Now, on the outside, you're like, what? Like, come on. Like, what? But when you mix it in a Coke Zero or a Diet Coke, that thing was amazing.
I'm vanilla Coke is my favorite Coke.
Yeah.
Just hands down across the board. But I can imagine if you know what you could probably do, and maybe we should do a taste test or something with this, is take the St. Elmo's and a Coke, do that, but then also get they probably source from what? MGP?
I don't know.
Barton?
Do they
something
even sell
like
it
that.
around here?
Yeah.
Does it?
I'm pretty sure.
I don't know. I just want that one infused with cherry.
But I'm saying like we could do that, and then we could also do like a mix of vanilla and cherry Cokes, but then do like a control bourbon in that and see how that compares to. So
it'd probably better.
Maybe next week if we can get all this together in enough time.
Man, it was so good.
We are recording this on the Monday before this episode comes out because
it's almost live.
I finally had my last Christmas of 2022 on the day before New Year's Eve, with 33 people in a small house in rural Kentucky. So, and at one point the thermostat was set to, brace yourself, 78 degrees.
Oh my God. Kill me now.
I wanted to die.
Stop.
I genuinely was like, I would rather be anywhere else.
I think thermostats should be allowed to go above 69.
Nice.
Yeah. The only other thing I got, I brought it over. Perry's been having a little bit of it. Was this Backbone bourbon pick from our friend,
friggin' awesome,
Matt Porter.
Dude, it's so good.
This is Slippin' Jimmy. It's 122.8 proof Backbone bourbon pick, and it's great.
It's like 100 months or something like that.
Yeah, whatever math that is. 100 months. Bottled on 10/22.
So not quite.
Only
it's like 8.5 years
only
old.
120 bottles of this.
I will say I was really bummed when I wasn't able to get one.
Well,
because he opened it up to the public, and I
grabbed one. Yeah, distilled in Lawrenceburg. So
What we should do,
almost 9-year MGP.
what all whiskey podcasters and whiskey tubers should do is have a tier just for other whiskey tubers and podcasters so that we can be on their Patreon and still get access to like their picks and everything, but we don't necessarily have to pay anything.
Here, have one little bit of this. I just want you.
Yeah, go for it. Or we can all just, be at the same tier for each other. And it's just like the private tier that nobody else has to be a part of.
That would be awesome.
But it's just us. So we can like still have access to each other's
Sounds like
picks.
you just made an idea.
Hey, I'm all about ideas this year. If you want to hear more about my only resolution for 2023, you can head to the Patreon page. And this week's pregame chats are revealing, I would say. We had some good conversation this week on
that was good.
Patreon page. So, like I said, this is kind of us taking the time to reintroduce ourselves this week, talk about our palates, our journeys, just who we are at a core base level as well. And, a little bit of background on the show before we get too far into it. I started this with two of my best friends in college, Curtis Conrad and Tanner Cheney, in October of 2017. So just over 5 years ago since that launched. It was a very awkward, rocky start at the beginning.
Had some great equipment.
We had I started with a Rock Band microphone, Rock Band like the video game, which had a USB plug, and that was something that I did that was wild and crazy. But just kind of like found our footing and trying to wrap our heads around what it meant to even be a podcast at all, and developing segments, developing personas, even though like I always say, who I am on the podcast is essentially who I am in real life.
Yeah.
Too. Like I think the only thing that truly changes is my voice a little bit. Like I'm not trying to present all the time, but I do have a more presenters or podcaster voice now after 5 years of doing this. But it's been a journey of self-discovery through whiskey, of expanding a community and building a community that I never thought was even possible before doing this, and having what I like to call the closest relationships that I have ever had. And the amount of friends that I made or have made over the past 5 years is it's paramount, especially when you can compare it to, the previous, how old was I when I started the show? 24? Yeah, 24, the previous 24 years of life. All my friends are whiskey friends now for the most part, except for the ones that I grew up with.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of a little bit of background on what we have done with the show since we started. There's a lot of other podcasts that I have been fortunate enough to be a part of. If you want to hear more of kind of the nitty gritty of, the self-doubt, the highs, the lows of what we've done over the past 5 years, I'll point people to a couple of episodes as well to go listen to after they get done here. If you want to listen to arguably the inception of what I wanted to continue doing with the show, which was the up to that point best interview I had done with TIMBP. The first episode that Dixon Dedman was on, who was initially of Kentucky Owl, that was from 2018.
Yeah, it was before pandemic.
Yeah.
Right
in the like 40s or 50s range, I would say. And then a more recent example too was our consumers versus retailers episode that we did a few weeks back at this point. But one of the more spirited conversations that we've had, and I think one that if you kind of want to see the growth and the gradual development that we have had with the show over the past few years, and just the way that we see ourselves within this scope of things, It's a really good indication of where our heads are at.
Yeah.
I would say. Would you like to introduce yourself to the people
Sure.
and talk about your journey? And
I'll do it.
because it's been, so Eric has, well, we'll get into it a little bit, but you've been here the least amount of time of everybody so far that's been associated with the podcast. But
I've not beat anybody yet.
Well,
I'm almost 2 years.
I guess you probably have. Yeah, you have.
I'm just playing. No,
Everybody is always a part of the TIMBP family. It's just
Yes.
some people have to move on to other ventures in
yeah,
life.
and I'm really competitive. So
Yeah, he's a fighter.
yeah, I'll buy somebody for
He
this
broke
seat
my
right
nose
now.
once.
Mentioned adding somebody else. I was like, ain't happening. But yeah, like I'd been a fan of the show for, I don't remember. It was probably around that Dixon interview, 2018, end of going into 2019. I listened, then I kind of got to know Perry. I want to get on the Patreon so I could listen to all that stuff. And then I kind of had my own little Instagram page, Whiskey Mutant, and I kind of got known for pairing snack cakes and bourbon and rye and whatever. And so once we actually got to talking and hanging out, I'd give Perry some samples, see each other every once in a while. We'd do some Zoom hangouts when we could. But then there was we had a meetup after COVID kind of settled down a little bit. And I got to kind of join in on the end of one of the episodes there with Swan and Perry. And it was kind of like an instant, like, to me, I was like, oh, I would love to do this. Because I was like, I love podcasts. I love talking and all that. And so it just kind of worked out. Like, Swan was kind of moving on with his life at that time and wasn't able to be on as much. I was here in town, lived close by, kind of settled in. I wasn't going anywhere. So just kind of eased into it. Like, so I started on one episode, and then I've been here ever since. As far as like my whiskey journey or whatever, like I've been around it for a long time, especially living in Lexington. I was around when you could get Weller on the shelves and stuff, but I didn't like take advantage of that because I had no idea.
I was, so I'm a few years younger than you are.
Yeah.
And I missed out on that era.
I missed out on it too, only because like I didn't know.
But I wasn't even buying bourbon at that point. You know,
I was
like
buying,
I was just, and I really didn't start drinking until I was 19 or 20.
Yeah.
And I never drank during high school. I never really went through a rebellious phase or anything either. Which, I mean, for better or worse.
Me either.
No, I don't believe that at all.
Sorry, Grin.
But but yeah, we both kind of came into this without the, I'm not saying that other people are wrong for the experiences that they had, but we came into this without the like jaded perspective of bourbon is not what it used to be.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people felt around the time that TIMBP started, but also progressively became something more and more that people were focusing on and thinking about, is that the market has changed so much, distribution has changed so much, the amount of money that we have to spend to even enjoy bourbon. And that's something too that, you know, coming into the 5th year of the show now, you know, basically getting into the 6th, that is very much again a part of the conversation, because we have seen rising costs over the past year.
Yeah.
And it's it really, I didn't want that to be a thing. I anticipated that it would be eventually, but I kind of dreaded that day where we were going to have a feeling of, you remember when it was $60 for a Russell single barrel?
Yeah.
Now it's 90.
Now we're here. But yeah, like
so sad, man.
But yeah, like I was there buying bourbon at Liquor Barn and places like that, but I didn't like, it wasn't like I am now. I may have bought a bottle just to have and been like, you know, I'm going to mix me, you know, I'm going to make a bourbon and Coke while I watch this movie, or somebody's coming over, let's take some shots of bourbon. There was probably some Weller. There was probably some Willet barrels that like I just happened upon. I know for a fact I got a Rock Hill Farms one time just walking in, and I didn't even think twice about it, and it was gone. Like I just bought one bottle at a time, and it was there for a couple of weeks, and then it's like, hey, I'm going to run to the store and grab another bottle of bourbon. But I kind of started listening to the podcast, listening to other stuff, watching YouTube stuff, and that's when I was like, you know what, I want to appreciate this more. And we started going to the distilleries and kind of checking that out.
Yeah.
I was proud that I was kind of around those places and doing more tastings. And that's kind of how I got into what I do now. And I just wanted to do something a little different, pair some donuts and snack cakes, and all that. But, it was just really nice to have a podcast to listen to that I really enjoyed for what it was. And then get asked to be a part of it just because, I think you knew that I enjoyed the show, but I could talk about the same stuff. We had a lot of stuff in common and different things like that.
Well, I also knew that Swan was moving on, that he was getting too busy. At that point in the year, in 2021, I was basically running things completely on my own, having to schedule guests, having to schedule guest co-hosts. And there was a period of a couple of months leading up to this impetus of me asking you essentially to be a part of the show. And, my schedule was flexible enough at that point to where you and I were able to make our schedules line up, and that we could work around. You work nights at a hospital.
Yeah.
I still work 40 hours a week during the day, but I, have been able to adjust my schedule so that my 40 hours doesn't overlap or interfere with us doing the podcast. It's I've been fortunate to have that flexibility.
Yeah.
But at that point, I knew I needed somebody else to balance out what I was doing, because I never wanted this to be a one-person show, despite the fact that I in many ways I'm the driving force behind this thing even happening. I mean, I've never relied,
just sitting in the back seat just hanging out.
I've never relied on anybody else for editing, except for a couple of times when I had adverse work situations going on, or when Lucy was pregnant, my wife, with our daughter, our first and only child so far. We're eventually going to have another, I think, or I hope at the very least. But I have consistently, I've been on every single freaking episode now, 263 counting this one. So I have been fortunate enough to do and forget more of the show than I could ever I could ever really put into
make an Instagram post every once in a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Barry's editing everything.
But it has been such a rewarding journey. Like I said, we've built this really great community. Speaking of the child, you could probably hear in the background. But we have had this really incredible opportunity to meet new people and not make necessarily, but allow other people the opportunity to build new friendships and find new people that they want to engage with. And it's crazy, man, looking back at that and just thinking like, oh, these people didn't know each other outside of the podcast, and now they are friends. They are genuine friends.
I feel like I see more people that are better friends than anybody I've seen based on just coming together because of that.
Yeah.
Like people are like meeting each other.
I'm not trying to pat myself on the back either. I apologize.
I'll pat you on the back.
But like we have literally had people from all over the world who have listened to the show and have supported us for so long. And I think that, as cool as that is, and you and I actually talked about this not too long ago too, like, I think it was on our top moments of 2022 conversation last week. As awesome as that is, and we're able to reach people in so many different walks of life across the globe. We also, want to foster a local community, a local listenership.
Yeah.
Be the hometown boys of bourbon podcasting and just bourbon in general, because despite the fact that we do all this podcast stuff, I mean, bourbon is still an important part of our lives. And, you know, we wouldn't be doing this if we, of course, didn't feel any kind of connection with it. And we were both born in Kentucky. You moved to Lexington. I was born here, and I've basically lived in Lexington my entire life. And it's just been aside from, like, you know, that heritage aspect of things, just feeling like connected to the industry and feeling connected to the history of it all, the legacy of bourbon as well has been so important. And, you know, I grew up around bourbon drinkers. Well, my dad at the very least was and is a bourbon drinker, Papa Ritter, whom you'll get to know if you're going back and listening to some episodes. And also, he's going to be on one sometime in the next few weeks.
My dad went to get some bourbon. Never came back.
That story changes every time you tell it. And I'm not sure what the actual...
I think it was cigarettes.
We'll get into that on a Patreon episode or something.
Okay.
It'll be the companion piece of introducing ourselves. It's the more private parts of who we are. But yeah, I think that as much as I resonated with the industry or the legacy of bourbon, and just the act of drinking it, which it's a fantastic spirit.
Yeah.
It's very approachable.
Sorry, Scotch.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
But, you know, there was a part of me too that I don't do anything halfway. I'm pretty committed from the get-go on a lot of things. Prime example, I married my high school sweetheart. And
you have a kid.
And we have a child together.
You did it all the way.
Yeah.
You didn't do it halfway. You have a kid. You did it all the way.
Yes. Saw it all the way through.
You went all the way in.
To
finish.
Completion. Sorry, Dad. But, you know, we have been consistently together since we started dating. We've had to live apart from each other for a little while, but not for the most part, for the whole part, we have been together. And so it has just kind of made sense to me to latch on to something like bourbon that has this long-standing relationship with where I'm from and with the country that we were born in as well. And I actually was watching a documentary movie the other day. I can't remember what it was called off the top of my head. I watched a couple in one night, and I'll talk about it a little bit in Tips and Bits, which is our segment where we recommend things. But what is the name of the master distiller at Woodford? Mark
Zucker.
It's not Mark Zuckerberg.
No.
Mark said that he was overseas for a whiskey convention, and he was speaking with a distiller at a Scotch distillery, and she was saying, you know, the Scots are so proud of Scotch whiskey, and it's part of our heritage, and you know, we rely so heavily, on that being a part of our story. Why don't Americans feel that same way about bourbon? Well, part of that is the fact that in the state where 95% of the world's bourbon comes from, there are still at least 50% are dry counties where you can't purchase alcohol. You can't. Oh, Chris Morris. There's no Mark there. I think I'm thinking of Mark Campbell, who's whatever. I'm not good with names unless I've met you about 5 times.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was asking why bourbon. She was asking Chris why bourbon is not as popular in America, and it's a very different mindset here, I think. And it's not saying that, you know, everybody has to drink bourbon. Everybody has to, you know, hold it in as high of a regard, but it is America's native spirit, and it is an important part of our heritage. as well.
Yeah.
It was the spirit that was devised when whiskey makers came over to the Americas, because they were trying to find a way to continue trade that they were familiar with, and to continue to have a spirit that they wanted to imbibe upon, because, in good times or bad times, people are both drinking and buying alcohol.
Yeah.
So there's always been a call for it. There's always been a market for it. And people have always felt a connection to it as well. And by the time that we started the podcast, I had gotten to the point where I was finishing up college. Yes, I went to college for a little bit longer than most people do. Took me a little while to get there.
You did it, though.
Finally. And here I am recently.
I'm still in college.
Dude, I can't commit to this because I don't have the time. I was recently thinking about going back and getting a different degree. I can't justify it. That's Marie, by the way.
Yeah.
Our dog. It was very loud.
Hear her from time to time.
But the thing that I kind of said was, well, we were already having these conversations about bourbon. We're already doing bourbon nights and having flights together with friends. And, I had started getting into It's Bourbon Night as well. Chad and Sarah, who are also in Lexington here. And just seeing the way that they operate. And I was like, well, I want to do something like this. I don't want to do a YouTube show necessarily. I didn't have the skills to do YouTube editing, video editing. At that point, I was really just focused on doing audio, especially having done a lot of my own music producing growing up. Golly, she's really going at it. But so a podcast just seemed natural.
Yeah.
I was really heavy into listening to podcasts at that time. I'm still listening to podcasts, but things are different now, I guess, in the way that I consume media. But, for the most part. Okay, sorry about that.
And we're back.
Wound up being fruitless after all.
Yeah. Oh, well.
But, what were we talking about?
Bourbon.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. No, it's just like being from Lexington, being proud of being close to the distilleries, and finally finding a way to talk about it and share what you feel.
And, too, I think it's kind of goes without saying that we both went on our own respective bourbon journeys, whiskey journeys, where, we started out with our bourbon and cokes.
Yep. Wild Turkey Honey.
Jim Beam Honey too was another one that I thought I was so cool for drinking.
Man, I was drinking neat. I was drinking Wild Turkey Honey neat, chilled in the freezer, and I thought I was a badass.
Yeah.
If you still do that, you're probably badass, honestly.
Hey, no, you drink what you want and how you want to.
Yeah.
But then I started moving into neat pours, and my dad, his go-to drink. Even as I'm talking about it, I can smell it. Maybe part of that is because we're drinking bourbon, but I can just my mind just automatically goes back to the smell of this drink. But his go-to pour is Makers on the Rocks with a splash of water.
Okay.
And I remember trying that way back when and being like, I do not like this.
On the rocks with water.
Too much water.
Yeah.
And we've recently adopted the term utility bourbon.
Yeah.
That's a utility pour, brother.
Yeah, it is.
That's a... Anyway, so I typically drink bourbon neat anymore. It's pretty uncommon for me to put it on the rocks or add any water to it, but every now and then, if I'm feeling a little squirrely, if it's a little hot outside, I'll throw a big ice sphere in there, smoke a cigar with it.
I still like making bourbon and cokes.
I haven't had one in a long time, but I am the same way.
I like old fashions. Yeah, that was probably my first bourbon cocktail that was like, man, give me an old fashioned. And I started really getting confident when I was like, you know what, give me the old fashioned, but throw some Maker's Mark in there for me. And you're like, I know what I'm talking about, right?
I got a new old fashioned mix that we need to try soon as well. But I think that's kind of about it for who we are and
we
what
just want to
we've
be
done.
And I've said this before, but if you're listening first time, this might be the first time you've heard it. But like, what drew me to this podcast the most was that I got the bourbon talk. I enjoyed the bourbon, but then there was other stuff throughout the episode, the end of it, each episode that was more geared toward what are you doing while you drink your bourbon? What are you listening to?
Or even when you're not.
Even when you're not. We're not saying everybody's drinking bourbon 24/7. What are you doing when you're just sitting on the couch watching TV this morning? Or what are you reading and all that? What do you like to, do when you're not drinking bourbon or when you have a pour? And so that's what drew me to the podcast. And that's what I still consider one of my favorite things about this is that I get to share my love for bourbon, but then I also have a chance to talk about other stuff.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
That's TIMBP to me, baby.
That's what TIMBP is.
Yeah.
Dude, this is my bourbon podcast is.
Yeah. This is what my bourbon podcast is. It isn't boring. It is awesome.
We might laugh a little too much.
We might laugh a little too much. We may make sounds a little too much when we're eating and snacking and pairing. We're not doing it on purpose. We may scare you during Halloween while you're driving. If you run off the road and wreck your car, we're sorry. We didn't do that on purpose.
We love you.
We do. We thank you for listening.
We apologize for it.
But that's just what you're going to get. You're not going to get just a quick review. You're not just going to get like, here's an interview with a distiller. See you later. You're going to get a little bit of everything.
And part of that too is because you and I outside of the show too are friends.
Yeah.
We don't do this because we have a contractual obligation or anything. We enjoy each other's company.
Yeah.
We talk all the time. We talk constantly. This is our time to sit down and catch up a little bit and share drinks with each other because we are so busy and because we're running around like crazy and
we don't even talk. Like we talk pretty much every day about something, but we probably don't even talk bourbon talk until we get here. We may say, I got this or something like that.
Yeah, I would say it's probably like 80-20 when we're off air, non-bourbon to bourbon talk. Yeah. Because we do still go like, oh, there's this release or, I'm stopping by Ernie's or, there's a new pick at whatever. But yeah, for the most part, I mean, we are, we're friends first and foremost that have been able to grow and cultivate a relationship that also includes drinking bourbon together.
Exactly.
And, a big part of this too is promoting responsible drinking.
Yep.
It's been a long time since I've come onto an episode and said, well, let me tell you, I got a little bit drunk last night and I had this pour, that pour, or whatever. But that's also because I'm drinking less.
Yeah.
And I have consumed a lot less alcohol as time has gone on. And I'm going to say this on here too, because I want to keep myself accountable. And I know you would help me do that as well. My goal is 200 by 30. 200 pounds by the time I turn 30 in August.
Let's go.
So that's 8 months.
Yeah.
I can do that.
You can do that.
Right?
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah.
Easy. And to hit that and to kind of maintain 200 at that point as well. Because, the pandemic was rough. We're eating worse. We're drinking more.
We need to get rid of that notification. Okay.
Yeah, the McDonald's notification. What a fantastic way to illustrate that. Yes, I do need to. Yeah, that's hilarious, man.
Oh.
That the definition of a sign. It's not like I'm getting McDonald's all the time. No, you're right.
We all turn our notifications on when we have something. Like I'll probably get a Chick-fil-A one here in a second or something like that.
That's really funny, actually. Very perfectly timed. You couldn't have written that much better. Amazing stuff. But anyway,
I'm going to be here to help you.
Yeah,
we'll be here together. You got any resolutions you need help with? And like, this is not even a joke. Like me being funny. Like, if you're like, I'm struggling, or like, hey, do you have any advice on this? You think Perry might know something, you may think I might know something. Get on the Patreon and send us a message, or just go to our Instagram, send us a message. Like, we honestly are here to help. Like, we have probably the most open inboxes of anybody, and we don't care to like answer questions or anything you hear that you're like, oh, it sounds like I love to go to Disney World as many times as I can, and I've got tips and tricks on different rides and even cocktails or something. Like, send us a message. You need help with sound or guitar, send Perry a message. Like, honestly, like, we don't care. We love to help people.
Yeah, dude.
And it's not just like, hey, what do you think about this bourbon? Like, we'll help you with whatever. Like, that's just us.
That's who we are, man.
So
that's who we are. Who we are also are reviewers.
Man.
And we're reviewing, somehow, after 5 years, 250 plus episodes, we have never gotten around to reviewing Basil Hayden from the Jim Beam Small Batch Collection.
It looks a little different than it used to, but it's still the same.
It looks nicer.
Yeah. It doesn't have paper that'll just rip off.
It's still got a belt.
Yeah, it does have a belt.
We've reviewed Basil Hayden products before. They're, different iterations of it, finishes or what have you. But this one is their standard 80 proof, artfully aged version.
Artfully aged. Art the clown.
Yeah, he's going to tear your face open. I don't know how old this is. I think that it is roughly between like 6 and 8 years. If I had to guess, Eric's going to look it up just in case.
Something up here.
But this is consistently one of those bottles of bourbon that we have moved on from, I would say, in this point in our bourbon journey.
But it could be somebody's intro to bourbon. Like, who knows?
And it normally is, because this winds up being, America, what a lot of people call a very smooth bourbon.
I mean, it says it right here on the website. Spicy yet smooth.
Well, there you go. It's made from their high rye mash bill, which means that it's kind of a loose term for what a mash bill can be. And a mash bill, for those of you who are maybe listening to a bourbon podcast for the first time, is the recipe essentially that goes into creating bourbon. It more than likely consists of corn, rye, and malted barley, although some people replace the rye with wheat. Other ingredients, Jim Beam has used rice recently too, brown rice, as a flavoring agent in their bourbon. And bourbon legally has to have at least 51% corn in its mash bill to be considered bourbon. Can be distilled anywhere in the United States to be called bourbon. Outside is basically just whiskey, even if they use the same mash bill and process. It has to be aged in new charred oak barrels, not containers like it used to be. They just changed that with the alcohol bureau, or whatever they call it, alcohol tax trade,
the alcohol
TTB.
Police.
Yeah, them. And there's no minimum age time. So you could essentially take the new distillate, the White Dog, that comes off of the still at a distillery, shoot it through the barrel for a second, and then you can still call it bourbon. It can't be straight bourbon, though, unless it's over 2 years old. So straight bourbon whiskey doesn't necessarily indicate that there's no additives, although a lot of people tend to feel that way. That's not the case. It means that it's got to be at least 2 years old.
Yeah.
Anything under 4 years old as well requires an age statement on the bottle. So if you see anything that says straight bourbon whiskey with no age statement anywhere, you can pretty much assume that it is going to be over 4 years old. Jim Beam pretty much hovers around the 4 to 6 year old area. Did you find it?
It didn't say on the website, but like a couple little places that did reviews and stuff said it's usually around 8 years old.
Yeah.
Because they have a 10-year product.
I'm not surprised.
So,
the other products in the small batch collection, Knob Creek, Baker's, Booker's, those are all kind of hovering around that that age range. Knob Creek being the oldest at about 9 years, at least in their small batch iteration. But this is widely considered to be people's introduction to bourbon.
And the price tag's a little on the $50.
It's 40.
40?
Yeah.
So that creeps up a little bit when you're just getting into bourbon. Like that can, that could make you think like, hey, this is a higher end bourbon and stuff like that. So
now I did not splurge for the full size bottle. I went for the pint, which was about $24, if I remember correctly. And it was just because I was like, I don't really drink Basil Hayden that much. And we're kind of doing this only for the purpose of reviewing. Will somebody else wind up drinking this? Yeah, absolutely. It just probably won't be me.
Yeah.
Now, we're doing something different as well.
I like this.
Going into the new year. And this was brought about. This was an idea that Eric and I very quickly, that's what I just said. I devised this idea after my final Christmas of 2022 on December 30th, where Lucy, my wife, her cousin, works for Buffalo Trace as a security guard.
Yeah.
There. And they had their annual Christmas party. And I was like, did you get to try anything cool? Did you get to try anything good? I specifically asked about the antique collection.
Yeah.
But he was like, no. Somebody brought Caribou Crossing. Didn't get to try that. There was like Weller Single Barrel that he tried as well. But the one that he was the most vocal about was the new Taylor Rye. Now, he's not a bourbon drinker either. But his exact words to me were, I would rather punch you in the face than have to drink that whiskey again.
That's what I'm talking about.
And that was so funny to us.
I love enough, Perry texted me that and I was dying laughing.
It was funny enough to where we thought, well, maybe we can find some way to include this in the podcast. Sure enough, what we decided to do is to have maybe, people who are non-whiskey drinkers or people who have with less experience than, people who do a podcast about bourbon would have experience with. So the other night, Lucy and I went to our friend's house to celebrate the new year. It's her best friend, Brandy, and her boyfriend, Micah. And I had the both of them try. There's a fly out here. Wild. I had them both try Basil Hayden. And these are their notes.
So this is the new thing. Like these are the non-bourbon drinker notes for our review.
Yes. Brandy said it went up her nose.
Okay. All right. Got a little ethanol there.
So. No, it literally went up her.
Oh,
she smelled it and it went into her nose. Yeah. So good stuff.
She got close to it.
Good way to start out there. She liked it. Okay. But she found no predominant flavor.
Oh, okay.
Said she couldn't really pick out anything with the barrel.
Okay.
Micah, on the other hand, said he could taste the barrel and he liked it more than Brandy.
Okay.
Now, the only other thing that I tried to get them to talk about was the price.
Yeah.
Right? $40 for a $7.50 for a full-size bottle. Brandy didn't really have any thoughts about the price. Micah said at $40 a bottle, even not really being a whiskey drinker, a bourbon drinker, he could see it as justified.
Okay. Nice.
So there you go. We might be of a different persuasion on this. However, I did drink it with them the other night. I was pretty surprised.
Okay. It's been a long time since I've had Basil Hayden, first off.
It is fruity on the nose.
When you think Jim Beam, everybody always says nutty and all this stuff. I get no nuts on that. None at all. No pocket almonds or anything.
Fruit and flowers. I think it's a very floral nose.
When I smell it, as far as colors that come to mind, I sometimes smell and taste in colors. I get a darker orange color.
I was going to say a light blue.
Light blue?
Mm-hmm.
I get darker orange. I get a dark orange, almost like a blood orange or something like that. Just an orange that's just a little darker than normal.
Now, what I have said in the past is that Basil Hayden, to me, smells and tastes like watered down bourbon. Which, if you take what I said earlier about Makers on the Rocks with a splash of water, you can infer that that is not necessarily my favorite aspect or note in a whiskey. So for a long time, I have been, I've not held this one in high regard, I would say, but I'm willing to give it a chance.
Yeah.
I mean, after 5 years, the fact we've never done this review, I think is crazy. We should have done it by now.
Well, we are,
but it's widely available.
Yeah, it is. It's everywhere.
So,
yeah, dark orange, a little chocolate, maybe a little oak, I guess.
I think it tastes better than it smells.
It tastes way better than it smells. It tastes, it tastes.
Oh, back into the palate. That's when I start to get some of the nuts.
It does taste like a watered down Knob Creek product.
Yeah.
And at 80 proof, I think a lot of us would expect that. But if you've not really tiptoed or got into higher proof bourbons, then yeah, this is smooth, you know?
Honestly, though, I don't hate it.
I don't hate it. I don't.
I'm not in love with it.
No.
But
I don't hate it. I don't have I'm not about to just trash this because it's better than I thought.
It's better than I remember. It is so much better than I remember.
It's almost like if you were like, I'm gonna drink some Knob Creek on the rocks, I know that it's gonna like give me that. So it's almost like light peanut butter.
Yeah.
It's like the peanut butter. It's like the quote healthy peanut butter.
Yeah.
You're not getting that sweet jiff and all that stuff, but you're getting a little bit of light notes. Everything is just very light. And I think as somebody who has got into higher proof bourbons, who are looking for all those notes, unfortunately, you're not going to get this. But if I'm just sitting around and I'm like, I don't need barrel proof tonight, I don't really care if I'm like going to sit and tinker with notes and write down tasting stuff, I could pour a pretty good pour of this and sit down and watch something, and I'm not going to be mad about it.
I'm not either, dude.
I think this is a situational pour. It's not something I'm going to put against other $40 bottles because, we both know, Rare Breed. You mean putting this up against Rare Breed?
Well, the Rare Breed's gotten more expensive too.
It's still in that.
It's like $70 now.
$70?
Dude, it's ridiculous.
I haven't bought any Rare Breed in a long time. I thought it was like $45.
I saw it the other day for $69.99.
Okay, never mind. $40 bottle though.
Directly
look at benchmark foolproof.
Well, yeah, but I'm thinking like even directly compared. Knob Creek small batch is about $35.
Yeah,
but it's 20 proof points higher,
right?
And it has more of a full body to it. But that is also what we want, more so than a light. I don't have to really consider much of what's going on in my glass bourbon.
So something I said, I don't know if I said it on here on Patreon or just to myself, but something I wanted to do was try to be a little bit more understanding of everything.
Yes.
And not just go straight to the negative.
Everything, everywhere, all at once.
Everything, everywhere, all at once. Great movie. Top movie of 2020. But
of what?
2022.
You said 2020 at first.
I don't know. But
I don't know what I'm talking about.
I don't want to think that this is just bad because it's low proof. And if somebody says, "What do you think about Basil Hayden?" I just automatically go, "Nope, don't get that. Get something else."
It's not bad. It's not bad because of its proof.
And if you are somebody who has not got really into getting neat pours and stuff, this would be a good first neat pour. When you've not got any ice, you've not got any water, you've not got any mix, I really think this will be a good first neat pour.
You know what's probably doing a lot of heavy lifting here too is the high rye content in the mash bill.
Yeah.
It's probably doing a majority of the legwork, getting you to, actually have a little bit more of a robust flavor to it. But
it's got some legs. Look at that.
Yeah, I mean, if it's also hovering around 8 years old, that's nothing to sniff at. It's nothing.
It's nothing.
It's nothing to sniff at. I mean, you shouldn't turn up your nose at an 8-year-old product just because it's a lower proof. I'm genuinely surprised by drinking this and feeling the way that I do about it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying all 80 proof bourbons are going to be this good.
For 80 proof, this is pretty good.
For 80 proof, I am not mad about this at all.
No. When we get into the points and all that, now you may see a switch.
It's gonna feel like we're being harsh about it, but I don't think that it's necessarily an indication that this is something to write off.
No.
And Eric mentioned the points. So if you are new here, we have a review system of nose, palate, finish, and price. It's 4 categories. Each category is out of 5. And then we total it up for a score out of 20. If you want to multiply by 5, find out what it is out of 100, you're free to do that. I think it gives you a better impression if you just keep it out of 20.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, 5 times 15, I think, is 75.
Yeah.
So that's not a great indication of, what we may grade it on like an American grading scale. But the thing is, like, we typically say once it hits about 13, 14 out of 20, that's where we would recommend it.
Yeah.
Or something that you should, definitely consider picking up. But to each their own.
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yeah. And usually our scores are just based on straight up what we're getting. But if you go back at what we just said, there may be some asterisks like, just because we gave it this doesn't mean you shouldn't try it. So.
Yeah. What do you think about the nose, Eric?
Nose was, I like the palate better, but I'm surprised that I got the notes that I got. 2.5.
I was actually going to give it a 2.
Okay.
I think it's the weakest part. And there's a tinge of that like watered down bourbon on there that I was talking about, which again, I don't like. So I tend to, and part of this too is our reviews are based on how we feel about things. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily, how we think other people should feel about things. But the good part of all of this too is that your palate might align with us, or you might find somebody else who reviews Basil Hayden in a different light. And you might find more value in what they are doing with it. But as for me in my house, it's a 2 on the nose.
Yeah. I think I got a little bit of chocolate on the end that I really liked. But palate for me, just a slightly. I mean, if we got technical, I'd probably say 2.75, but I like to keep it like even. So I would say the palate. I'm saying, I know I said the nose is better, but it's not better to the point where it would be another point higher. I'd say a 2.5.
See,
again.
I think it is a full point higher.
Okay.
I'm giving it a 3 on the palate. I think that's where it really starts to show itself and show what it is capable of. And I surprisingly am finding more notes the longer that I go back to it. There's a mint note on here that I wasn't picking up beforehand, but it's there.
Yeah.
That rye is really starting
there's
to
kind of a
through.
breadiness in there too.
Like a rye bread, for sure.
And that leads into the finish, which I think is the best part.
I think the finish is really good on this, man.
I'm giving the finish a 3.
I'm giving it a 3.5.
Yeah.
I mean, it is so much longer than I was anticipating it. I'm not really getting like a Kentucky hug with it, of course. It's 80 proof.
It surprised me the most. I got more chocolate. I got more bread. I got more of that peanut butter, all on the finish.
Yeah. I'm not mad about the finish by any means. I don't know why that happened.
I don't know. They probably didn't hear it.
No, they did.
Oh.
It was in the middle of a sentence. There's no way they could.
Maybe they did.
Yeah, there's a little bit of phone interference. I'm sorry. It's fine.
Anyway, next point.
Point for price. It's not the way I wanted to say that. $40 for a fifth. There is an elegance in the presentation to this that I think people are drawn to just when you see it amongst other bottles.
Yeah.
Right? They have redesigned this label over the past couple of years. They have taken the time to really elevate the presentation. And while that's not fully indicative of what price or value may be, it doesn't necessarily lead you astray, right?
Yeah.
I think that it's a very decent bourbon for what it is. And I'm not trying to like qualify things in a way that indicates that maybe I don't like it. I do like it. I'm surprised that I can sit here and go, yeah, I like Basil Hayden.
Yeah.
It's the first time in a long time that I've had it, and it's the first time that I've ever been this discretionary about the pour itself. Yes, there are better values. Yes, there are products that are at a higher proof for less money, but I think that when you take this at face value, you look at how Jim Beam has gone about crafting, producing, presenting this bourbon. I think that $40 is really not that much out of pocket for you to have something for everybody on your bar.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a 3.5.
Oh. So, I gave it a 1.5.
Yikes!
I know.
Wow.
But
I wasn't expecting that.
Well, I think it's just like you said. There's more things that are cheaper that I would find better.
Yeah.
I just think this. I think that this is an introductory bourbon at 80 proof. It's hard for me to say, yes, $40 is a decent price.
Yeah.
I'm saying at. I don't even want to give it a price to say like, well, this, I'm not trying to do that. I'm just going based on what I think. I don't know. I just feel like this could be a little cheaper and I would be okay with it.
It could be.
I think this is, like I said, I'm not mad at this. I'm not mad at this at all. When you said we were going to do this, I was like, I'm going to shit on this thing, but I'm not at all. I think it could be a little cheaper, and maybe the expressions that they make older and finished and all that, maybe they are a little bit more expensive. I just think it could be a little cheaper. And that's just how it is. But I feel like if there was another category, if there was that little trophy that we tried to do a lot that one time, I would give this the Go Back and Reintroduce Yourself award. Because I think if a lot of people who have said... I meant
to bring this back, and I totally forgot about it. But I was thinking about it yesterday, and I was like, oh, we need to...
I think it's, you go back and you could appreciate this a little bit more than you used to. Bring It Back award, maybe, or something like that?
Yeah.
Try It Again award?
Basil Hayden, you're the
Try It Again champion.
Not the best, but you're
the best at trying it again today.
Today,
you won that award.
It's the Give It Another Shot award.
Give it another shot. I like that. Put that in there and I'll shoot it.
Okay.
And that'll be the Give It Another Shot award. I'm going to give Basil Hayden another shot.
He really did it, folks.
There we go. No, like I said, the price hurt it the most for me. But other than that, it surprised me. And if you're a new bourbon drinker and somebody that's trying to get into something neat, this is a great way to get into it.
Yeah.
And if you're like us who have had everything almost and you're wanting to add a little something different to a blind, if you want to just say, hey, I'm going to try stuff that I haven't tried in a while that I've been talking bad about, because we've done that. We'll admit it. I think this is it's a good, fun evening to get it. Hey, invite some of your bourbon nerds over. Hey, let's try Basil Hayden again. Like, hey, this isn't as bad as we thought.
No.
You can do whatever you want to with it, but it's not as bad as I thought and remembered.
No. Well, my final score was a 12 out of 20.
Well, mine wasn't as good, but Basil Hayden, that's okay. You got an award. It was 9.5. So
I would say you are in a much better position having bought a pint of it than having bought a full fifth.
I'll buy a pint. You buy the full thing, and we'll figure out something to do with it. I don't know what that means.
This is a horrible financial investment.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I'm just saying, like, you said I'm in a better position to buy a pint.
No, I think that not you.
Oh,
I just mean the general.
Okay.
You, the
I
listener.
thought you were looking at me. You were looking at me, and you were saying,
"No, I'm sorry." The royal you. You would be in a better position if you were a longtime bourbon drinker to buy a pint.
That whole thing that I did just made no sense at all.
No, it didn't. It didn't. But
I told you I didn't know what I was doing.
What I'm saying is that if you are curious about it again,
buy a pint.
Spend the $25 on a pint.
It's worth it.
Don't go get a full bottle of it, because then it's just gonna take up space. But there is still something about this that feels like a splurge bottle.
Well, I think it presents itself as that.
It does. And I think that holds a lot of weight to it. But Basil Hayden, give it another shot.
Basil Hayden, another shot award.
Like Eric did.
Yeah.
Do you have any high proof hot takes this week? This is where we maybe give a little hot take on something that's
observed holidays that are not on the holidays. The actual date kind of pisses me off. I'm not going to go into detail.
This is such a specific
New Year's
recent issue that you've had.
Celebrating New Year's Day.
Celebrating
New Year's Day several days, I guess a day after it's actually been done is just dumb.
How do you feel about birthday weeks?
Birthday weeks?
Like celebrating your birthday throughout a week?
That's different. That's personal.
Okay.
Why is New Year's Day, New Year's Eve? But everybody's like, New Year's Day is a holiday. Let's celebrate it another day because it's on a Monday.
You know what's funny is that I think that the celebration of New Year's Day, where everything is closed and everybody's off work, unless you're a nurse, is a lot like what people want from the Super Bowl.
Hey, I love the Super Bowl. I ain't going to act like that's my choice to get drunk and eat a lot of bad food on Super Bowl. I don't deserve to have to be off the next morning.
Yeah.
I don't know. I had to work a lot extra because people weren't in the office the next morning because of this. And that was my high proof hot take.
There you go. I don't have anything this week. I've been in a good mood.
You're a good boy.
Hey. You're good sometimes.
No, I'll take that.
Mostly.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
Especially growing up the way stuff my grandma had to deal with.
I would say you're 99% good.
Yeah, there's 1% I'm bad.
You just want to start a fight.
Sometimes I'm bad in that way. Sometimes I'm bad in I'm bad.
You want to smoke cigarettes.
Yeah, dude.
With old ladies.
Sometimes I do.
Meetups.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I'll share a cigarette with anybody.
Tips and bits?
Tips and bits.
This is our segment where we recommend things. It's not always bourbon related. Sometimes it is, though. Let's bounce back and forth on this one.
Okay.
I'll start out with one that is actually bourbon related.
Oh.
It was kind of a surprise. I didn't know that this was a thing, but on YouTube, it's part of the UK University of Kentucky archive thing that they put up.
Yeah.
And it was on a documentary, or it was a documentary on Buffalo Trace, and it was called In Pursuit of the Best Bourbon, the world's best bourbon or something. Yeah.
Bourbon?
Yeah, Tony Pursuit.
Tony Pursuit?
Yeah.
Was that his project before Bourbon
That
Pursuit?
was his first thing that he did.
I thought so. I knew he'd done something before.
It had to have been done in the early 2010s. Mid early 2010s. Because Freddie and his dad, Freddie Johnson and his dad are both in it.
Really?
Yeah. It's crazy. Elmer's even in it. Yeah.
That dude was the man. I don't care what
He's
anybody
awesome.
says.
Just a fun little watch. I mean, it's not trying to make Buffalo Trace look like the best distillery in the world or anything, but they are telling their story, and they're talking about how they are constantly in pursuit of finding the best bourbon that can be made.
Nice.
It's good, man. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed watching it. It's only about an hour long. Very light, very brisk.
Nice.
So
I like that.
there you go.
I'll recommend a documentary.
Really?
Yeah, it's similar.
Okay.
It's about Shaq.
Ooh.
Yeah. Because
Is it about that time I beat Shaq?
No. R.I.P.
R.I.P.
No, it's about Shaq. It's called Shaq. It's on HBO Max. But no, it's like a 4-part documentary about Shaq and like how he grew up. Like, it's crazy. Like, I won't go into too many details. It just follows him from being a kid to being drafted by Orlando, then going to the Lakers, then Miami, then kind of just bouncing around until he finally decided to retire. But Shaq's such a good guy with what he does now, but it doesn't really stray away from, like, he kind of talks about how he wasn't, loyal to some of his wives and stuff like that. Like, it doesn't just make him out to be this, like, hero and stuff like that. It's a really good documentary.
Nice.
Especially if you grew up watching Shaq play, or you're a fan of basketball, anything like that, or just a fan of what he does now. Like, the fact that he found out one day that his shoes were such and such price. He decided to make his own shoe, like just make his own, not sponsored by somebody, put it in Walmart so kids who can't afford $200 shoes could actually buy a pair of Shaqs. Stuff like that. It's just entertaining. He's funny. He's got a lot of other sports guys in there talking about him. Like, he's got one of his first coaches on there. His coach starts tearing up because Shaq growing up, it took him a while to get into his body. Like, he was very tall at a very young age, and he was very clumsy. He wanted to be the best, but he just couldn't. He had to learn coordination and all this stuff. And there was one coach that kind of took a chance on him and tried to help him instead of just saying, hey, you're not good enough to play basketball or something like that. It's just a great documentary. It's nice. Like 4 hour long episodes. 4 1 hour long episodes. Yeah. So yeah, that's my documentary.
Nice.
Yeah.
I got a book.
Okay.
I'm going to recommend. Jeanette McCurdy's I'm Glad My Mom Died, which sounds heavy because it is, and it sounds inflammatory. It's not. It is the retelling and basically just an insight into her life growing up as a child actor. She was on the show iCarly when she was younger, which was one of my favorite shows growing up, and I still love it. The new series, which is on Paramount Plus, is so much fun and so goofy. And
telling you this is how I feel.
It's... I don't feel like singing. But like the new one is more just grown up and everything. But this is her recounting the abuse, both physical and mental, that she was put through by her mom during her formative years, as she was becoming a child actor and leading up to when her mom passed away from breast cancer. And it's a fascinating insight into how she has been able to come out on the other side better. She's still struggling and dealing with things, as we all kind of are, but for the most part, she's an incredible human being, first and foremost. And I recommend the crap out of this book. I gave it 5 stars.
Nice.
On Goodreads.
I've heard about that from some podcasts I listen to and stuff.
Yeah.
And it sounds amazing, honestly.
Yeah.
Especially if you grew up watching that show.
Oh, yeah. And it's not a super long read or listen. I've been going the audiobook route recently because that's just the easiest way for me to consume books and just listen to them while I'm working or doing stuff around the house. So it was about 6 hours long.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
Yeah.
It's not President Obama's memoir, which was 29 hours.
It's a long time.
It was a long read.
Yeah.
It was good. I mean, it's an insightful look into his presidency, but man, it was long. It was so, oh gosh. Anyway, you got another one?
One more on Netflix right now, Bullet Train. I kind of watched
Brad Pitt.
Yeah, Brad Pitt.
I've still not seen it actually. I gave it this ringing endorsement there.
I won't go into too much detail. I feel like as being an anime fan, it's like a live action anime to me.
Yeah.
Like everything's taking place on this train and there's all these characters that are kind of over the top, but still like kind of real. There's friggin' swords, there's guns, there's comedy, there's everything. Like, if you're a fan of Atlanta, the TV show, Paperboy in that has a role in it.
Nice.
The girlfriend in Atlanta, what's her name?
Zazie Beetz?
Zazie. Yes, she's in it. She makes an appearance.
Cool.
But yeah, Brad Pitt's awesome. Like there's a reveal at the end of like his handler that he takes jobs. Like he doesn't like to kill people. He may just do like a snatch and grab. Like
that made me realize all three of like the main characters, Donald Glover, Paperboy, and Zazie Beetz.
Yeah.
They have all been in Marvel movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just hit me that they've all been in Marvel movies.
I love that. I'll recommend Atlanta again. I've said that before.
Friggin' great show, man.
But yeah, Bullet Train on Netflix right now. I won't spoil anything. It's a great show. It's just action, comedy, it reminded me of kind of a Quentin Tarantino type thing going on.
Gotcha.
Like it introduced a character, then it to show the background and why they are there. Like Brad Pitt kind of ran into all these people at a different point in time.
Nice.
He's like, oh, I remember why that's why I remember this guy and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so good. I love it. I thought it was a great movie.
Well, I'll give one last one. 2022 was kind of the year that I embraced my love of country music. Old country, though. Like, and the people who are continuing the traditions, too, of, anyway. Yeah. I think it was kind of like the last piece of the puzzle for me. I was getting into Merle Haggard.
Merle Haggard.
Brother.
He's old school, right?
He is super old school.
Yeah.
Mama Tried, which is maybe his most famous song, and one of my favorite songs ever written. Driftwood is just a fabulous, fabulous song. Tulare Dust has been stuck in my head for about 3 days. Just incredible songs and songwriting, and highly recommended if you wanted a good introductory playlist for Merle. There's one, it's on Spotify and Apple Music. You have to kind of dig for it a little bit on Apple Music, but it's called 45 Minutes of Merle. What is it specifically? Merle, 45 Minutes of Pleasure.
Ooh. I like that.
It's real good. There's a song called Great Afternoon. Or It's Been a Great Afternoon, excuse me, where he basically wakes up with a hangover and it gets cured by some afternoon delight.
Oh.
It's good. It's really, it's a fun little song. But listen to more Merle.
Yeah. If you want some more afternoon delight, you can go to patreon.com.
That's true.
Yeah. / My Bourbon Podcast.
Wait, what?
My Bourbon Podcast.
Afternoon delight over on Patreon?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you sign up, you're going to get some kind of a delight. I didn't say exactly what kind it was. If you just want to support the show, if you got an extra $1 laying around, you're like, you know what? I don't want to lose this in my seat, my couch. I want to give it to this My Bourbon Podcast. You can do that. Support the show for as little as $1 a month. And at $5 a month, you get all the bonus stuff. Pre-game chats, which was very long. Basically another episode.
Pretty much.
We do pre-game chats. We do extra little 20 to 30-minute episodes of stuff where we do samples, or we may finish a bottle that I have laying around, which is too many, and my wife gets mad at me, and that's called Pours from the Floor, where we finish a bottle. And then Perry has too many samples laying around that we step on and get glass in our toes. That's called Samply Irresistible. We've been doing several seasons of those, and now we got a new one coming up.
Yeah. But after our new 6-week show that we're doing in place of Force from the Floor.
Yeah.
Just to give it a little bit of breathing room.
Yeah, we'll go back to it because I've got several pours that are sitting on my basement floor that we need to finish.
Yeah.
If you want to send us a email or a question, you can send an email to thisismybourbonshop@gmail.com. That's just a place to be proper. You don't want to slide into a DM. You want to send an email.
Only in MLA format.
There you go. But send us a question. You want us to review something? You have a suggestion? You want us to pair something? You want to send us a sample? That's where you do it. If you want to get some merch, it's bourbonshop.threadless.com. Perry put some new designs for the holiday, which maybe you want something for next holiday. Maybe you don't give a crap if you wear holiday shirts when it's not the holiday. So you can go over there, bourbonshop.threadless.com. I have a shop, Whiskey Mutant shop. I don't really have much left on that. So it's kind of under construction because I got some new stuff coming out, but that's whiskeymutant.myshopify.com. If you want to leave us a voicemail on the Barrel Rings line, it's 859-428-8253. We'll play your voicemail and then we'll just reply back to it. Maybe you ask a question, maybe we'll give a comment, maybe you'll freaking burn us and then we'll turn around and burn you back. Like, I think that I want to do a burn battle. Like, so yeah, next person who does that, do a burn battle, burn us, just give us crap, and I'm going to send it right back to you. If you want to check out all social media, it's at My Bourbon Pod, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. You can follow me at Whiskey Mutant. You can follow Perry on his personal stuff, PRitter1792. If you go over to Facebook, we have a Facebook group. This is My Bourbon Podcast Facebook group. Answer some questions. We'll let you in as long as you're not a bot or a troll. And then leave us a review. 5 stars, 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, 4 star. We don't care.
We got a new 5-star review, though.
Boy, do we?
In Canada.
Canada.
From our dear friend Andrew West. He said, 5 stars, great show. These handsome gentlemen produce a great show. Listen on Patreon for more effing and jeffing.
Oh.
There's a reference.
Effing and jeffing.
Effing and jeffing.
Fucking and jucking. Leave a... So Andrew's entered into...
Yes, if you leave a review during the month of January, I think we're going to enter Andrew into that as well, because that was at the tail end, the very, very last couple of days of 2022. You will be entered into a giveaway for some samples that we will send to you free of charge, and we are going to do maybe some snacks as well. And we're going to do a little Zoom tasting with over that. And speaking of Patreon as well, I forgot to mention this when you were talking about Patreon because I kind of zoned out a little bit.
You don't know what I said, did you?
Not really.
I didn't think so.
We don't have a new Patreon member, but we do have a Patreon member who has been around for a while that has now moved up to the highest tier.
You know
on
what?
Our Patreon page.
I'm just going to say that if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't know about Patreon, I want some more content, I don't know, that should be a sign that we're doing something right.
If
the person who's been around here so long decides he's going to move up levels. Who is this?
Todd Cooper. Wow, Todd.
He's the king TIMBP right now.
He's TIMBP king, absolutely.
King TIMBP. You know what? He should get... I'll be honest. I know you kind of handled that side of things. I don't know what the perks of this. Is there a perk where he gets to pick the episode one?
He will be much more. He's like our new executive producer.
Damn, there we go.
Of the show.
You want to fight Todd for it? Go to patreon.com.
Yeah.
Wow. Todd. I remember the first time I met Todd.
Oh, really?
It wouldn't be where you thought. Where do you think the first time I met Todd was at?
A meat counter.
No. A bakery.
Oh.
Todd was making bread. Yeah, he was in town. He was in town. He needed some extra cash, and he went to this bakery that we both know that's great donuts. But they make bread and everything like that. And he said, I need some cash for a week. He was kind of in between stuff. And he just had this technique of making bread. Like, he put his hips into it and stuff like that. And like, they were like, all right, we need some bread. So for 1 week, Todd made bread. And I went to get some snacks and some donuts to pair. And I saw this guy just like, And I was like, what is he doing back there? And they're like, oh, he's the bread maker. I was like, how is he making that bread?
We got a bread guy.
Yeah. They said, just don't ask questions. Just try his bread.
It's best if you don't know.
I took a big bite of his bread.
And?
Amazing.
Salty?
Very salty. A little pineapple-y. Salty pineapple bread. So good. I said, let me meet this guy. I went and talked to him, and he was like, oh, I like bourbon too. So that's how I first met. That was before I even was on the show.
Wow.
Now look at him.
Look
He's the King TIMBP.
King TIMBP himself.
Yeah.
Making bread like nobody else can.
No. Salty Hawaiian bread. If you want to go to YouTube, we have a YouTube channel.
We do have a YouTube channel.
It's My Bourbon Podcast YouTube. You can watch this episode if you don't feel like listening to it, or if you want to listen to it and then see the expressions we make, go to YouTube. And then just tell people about us. That's all we can ask for, man. Send a letter, tell grandma, tell papa, tell your girlfriend, tell your ex-girlfriend. We don't care. If they like bourbon and they like pop culture, they're probably going to like this podcast.
There you go.
And thank you if this was the first time you listened.
And come back next week.
Yes.
I don't even know what we're doing next week.
I've
got an idea for next week's Patreon episode.
Oh, okay.
It's going to be what would be in the TIMBP vending machine.
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Why not steal that?
Doesn't know.
I'm just playing. We're on the same show.
It doesn't all have to be like snacks, like drinks too. You know.
People? Miniature versions of people?
Yeah, sure.
Like if you want to like buy a best friend for a day.
Little squeaky Fred Minnick voice.
Yeah. Give you this award. Is that an episode?
That's it. We've done it. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you've come back or if you're listening for the first time, it's just so good to have you here.
Thank you.
We appreciate everybody who supports the show, who listens, who watches, who just is present. That's all. We'll see you guys real soon. Until next time, though, I'm Perry.
I'm Eric.
And this is My Bourbon Podcast.